Let's bring in another important voice to the mix. Former foreign policy advisor under Margaret Thatcher, Nile Gardiner, joining the conversation. Nile, good to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning. We are watching President Putin get in his car to drive the 20-minute drive to where he is expected to meet President Trump. Your expectations ahead of this meeting?
Well, I think it's going to be a fascinating meeting, and my hope certainly is that President Trump will simply reinforce the very robust policies of his own administration. Actually, the Trump administration has been far tougher, actually, on Russia than the Obama administration. I think under Obama, there was a tremendous deal of confusion, a lot of appeasement. You had this disastrous Russian reset that Hillary Clinton brought in. There's much more clarity, actually, under the Trump administration, and this is one of the most important aspects here. The Trump White House has been very, very tough on Russia, and so my hope is that President Trump will continue this toughness, that he will send a message of strength and resolve any kind of weakness or concession is going to work tremendously to the benefit of Vladimir Putin, a very experienced operator on the world stage. He's been de facto in charge in Russia for nearly 20 years, a former KGB agent. He's dealt with 4 U.S. presidents in the past, and let's face it, Vladimir Putin is a deadly adversary of the United States, and he should be treated as such.
What do you mean by that in a practical manner, treated as such? What do you want President Trump to do in that regard?
Yeah, I think it's very important that President Trump sends a clear message to Vladimir Putin that Putin's actions in Ukraine, his occupation of Crimea, his continuing occupation of a big chunk of Georgia, this is absolutely unacceptable. The president must make it clear that there will be no weakening of U.S. sanctions, no lifting of U.S. sanctions, unless, of course, the Russians withdraw from Ukraine. There's no sign, of course, that they're going to do that. Also, I believe that President Trump must make it clear that the United States is committed as well to ensuring that Iran and Moscow do not increase their influence in Syria. There's a good reason why U.S. forces are still on the ground in Syria, not only to fight ISIS, but also, of course, to ward off especially Iranian influence. And the Russians, of course, are heavily supporting the Iranians at this time. So the message should be to Moscow, back off in Syria as well. The Russian-Iranian alliance is absolutely detrimental to the Middle East, and the U.S. has to approach Moscow with real resolve here. And just a few months ago, of course, U.S. forces engaged with Russian mercenaries who are acting on the orders of the Kremlin. Up to 300 of those Russian mercenaries were actually killed by U.S. forces. That's the right signal actually to send to Moscow. Putin didn't have much of a response to that. He understands only one message, and that is real strength and determination.
And Niall, it's also worth noting that President Trump did recently make the comments that Russia should rejoin the G7 again after he invaded Crimea in 2014. He's been, to quote the Wall Street Journal editorial page, persona non grata in Europe. So wouldn't you essentially suggest to the president, don't repeat that assurance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the idea that Russia could be brought back into the G7 is, is completely unrealistic. It's opposed by all of the other members of the G7. In fact, that, of course, would be the G8 if the Russians came back in. But I think that would be a very, very bad idea, even to suggest at this meeting that the Russians, can come back in under the current circumstances. There's a lot of things the Russians need to do in order to return to what was originally the G8. But the fact that
Niall, I just want to ask you, we have new information this morning in the UK.
Yes.
Another Conservative has resigned over Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit plan. Scott Mann now quitting as a parliamentary private secretary. He says he's not prepared to accept what he's calling a watered-down Brexit. What are the implications here?
Well, good for him. You've seen a whole wave of resignations, not only from, two of the biggest cabinet ministers, Boris Johnson, David Davis, but also a whole host of more junior ministers, parliamentary private secretaries. Let's face it, the Theresa May Chequers Brexit deal is very bad news for Britain. It is, in effect, a surrender to the European Union. And there is a rebellion brewing in the Conservative Party right now against this deal, and momentum is tremendously building against the Prime Minister over this. The British people voted for Britain to be completely free of the shackles of the European Union. That's not what Theresa May has been offering with this proposal, and she is facing a real fight back against real conservatives inside the Conservative Party who are standing up for British sovereignty and self-determination. You're going to see a lot more resignations this week.
All right, we'll be watching that. Nile, good to see you. Thanks very much for weighing in this morning. Nile Gardiner there.